Good afternoon, Mweshi, Bunda, Mutuna. Good afternoon, Joseph Mutale. I am Andreas Stargard with Primerio. We are excited to have you, Joseph, with us. It is a pleasure to meet you virtually for the first time. Forward to discussing your agency in Zambia and the great work it's done and you've done in the mergers division there. My name again is Andreas. I'm an antitrust partner practicing competition law and anti-corruption, doing anti-corruption work as well with Primerio. We're a Pan-African legal boutique. And I have with me my partner, Mweshi, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Good afternoon, Joseph. Good afternoon, Andreas. So I am Mweshi Banda Mutuna. I am the Primerio Zambia lead, and pleased to have you with us today. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
Joseph, we understand you are the, if that's the accurate title, a senior investigator with the Mergers and Monopolies Division at the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission in Zambia. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role there at the CCPC?
All right. Thank you so much, Andreas. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to Mweshi. As you've introduced me, I'm Joseph Mutale, working here at the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. Currently, I'm working in the Directorate for Mergers and Monopolies and positioned as a senior investigator. So basically, my nature of work simply involves one, which is assessment of mergers and acquisitions. And the second part is basically the investigative part of abuse of dominant cases. So my department basically deals with mergers as well as abuse of dominant cases. So basically, that's what I do at the CCPC. Thank you.
Brilliant. And in terms of the arc of your career, the span, the way it began to where it is now, you are now a senior investigator. Clearly, you didn't start out at that level. You began, like all of us, at some starting point somewhere else. Can you tell our audience today how you ended up there at the CCPC in this more advanced position?
All right, thank you. Maybe I should start from after graduation. I graduated from uni, that was 2012, and 2013, that's when I started as an intern. That should be April 2013, I remember it correctly, at CCPC, just as an intern in the Directorate of Consumer Protection. Later, I was confirmed that should be January 2014. That's when I became an investigator in the same Directorate of Consumer Protection. So I worked as an investigator in consumer protection up to 2022 June, month end of June. From there, that's when I transitioned now to the competition side, where I was appointed as a senior investigator for mergers and monopolies. I should say before I even took up the position of senior investigator to deal with competition matters. As I was handling consumer protection matters, I was privileged to work with ISPEN, which is simply the International Consumer Protection Network. It's a global network. And for the years 2018 and 2019, Zambia hosted the ISPEN conference. So because we were the presidents for the network, so I was privileged to be the project officer on that network. yeah, we did some commendable work in terms of consumer awareness. So, like I mentioned, 2022, that's when I transitioned now to focus more on competition matters. So much of my work at the Commission has been consumer protection. I hope I'm going to have a good span of years to do more on the competition side because I'm finding it very interesting. Yeah.
That is interesting. So your arc started essentially, if we stay with that name, your arc started with the consumer protection front of things, and then now is moving clearly, given the mergers and monopolies dossier that you are overseeing, to the pure competition or antitrust side, if you will. That's, I think, those are the two big portfolios, right? And I know that speaking with, having spoken with your fellow Zambian national, the head of the COMESA Competition Commission, Dr. Willard Mwemba, who I'm sure you know and you're familiar with, he said at the CCCs at one of the events that they hosted last year, recently, or this year actually, 2024. I'm already living in the future. It's not 25 yet. Willard did tell us that the CCC, the COMESA Competition Commission, is also going to actually now do the kind of a flip in the inverse, and it is going to focus a little bit more, in addition to competition, on the consumer protection element. And they will actually add a fourth C to their name. So the COMESA Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. So it's sort of your arc, but in reverse, if you will. Good, very interesting. Mweshi, are you and Joseph in the same town? Are you both in Lusaka? Where are you?
Joseph, I'm in Lusaka. I don't know about you.
I am. I'm in Lusaka as well.
Okay.
We're basically in the same town.
All right. I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting when I have been down to your offices, although my understanding is you've moved from the post office to Great East Road.
Yeah, we are now along Parliament Road, just opposite the Mweshi Conference Center.
Okay. All right.
We've not met before with Mweshi in person, but I think at the time I was doing consumer protection, there are cases where you are representing some parties, so you could just see from the correspondence.
Okay.
This is coming from Mweshi, Bunda, and the like, but not in person.
All right. Okay. No, nice.
Very good. I hope you're not conflicted out of our podcast now, Mweshi.
Not at all. I think we have managed to cultivate a very civilized interaction with the commission.
Yes.
We can fight but hold hands at the same time.
True.
Very good. In fact, I think that is Primerio's new tagline as of today: fighting but holding hands. We'll put it on the website, Mweshi.
Please
we'll
do.
license it to the CCPC as well if you guys want. But Joseph, now that we've sort of covered the introductory portion of this discussion, and we know who everyone is, why don't you elaborate a little bit on where you see? I want to start with the future. I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of focused on the future today. Maybe it's because we're towards the end of the calendar year, and I feel forward looking. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you see the future focus of the CCPC and your work, especially on the competition front or on the consumer protection front as well. I leave it up to you what you want to focus on. But where do you see the future? What do you see as the sort of main initiatives? Are there any changes, or is it more of the same type of enforcement that is currently existing?
All right. Thank you so much. So I think I should begin by saying things are changing. Things will not be the same the way they are today. That's not the way they're going to be in the future or tomorrow. And I'm saying so with regards to the advancement in technologies. Now we have what we are calling artificial intelligence and the like. So like I can speak like in line now with competition, something which is of interest with the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, particularly my unit, is now basically trying to understand the digital measures and also basically in line with the abuse of dominant cases, which can be happening across borders. So these are some of the things I think even in our networks with ICN, these are some of the things which are at the core or at the center which have been discussed. How do we handle digital measures? How do we handle competition issues which are in the digital space and it's digital space because this is something that has got no boundaries. It just cuts across. So how, as competition authorities, are we going to grapple with such? Yeah. So I think that's what we are supposed to be looking at. Again, in line with mergers and acquisitions, I remember we've been having discussions with my teams. We've seen quite a number of acquisitions, especially in the mining industry. And I think what I have noticed or observed, there is a lot of tech which is coming with the acquisitions in the mining industries, and this I am speaking to artificial intelligence. It's no longer business as usual like in the past, where when someone was required to do the exploration resources and the like, they would do it manually. It's no longer like that. Nowadays, there's artificial intelligence and there's robotics, which these big mining corporations are using. So I think the conversations we've been having with my colleagues and also at with some other competition authorities is that okay, how do we see these things? How do they affect the issues which we look at when we are assessing measures such as public interest considerations? Because there you're going to be looking at okay, what will be the issues to do with human resource? Will there be any reduction with human capital with this big mining corporation acquiring this particular mine? Are they going to employ purely their tech such that it will result in them maybe laying off a certain number of human capital? So we've been having discussions around that. So this is something which is very important, and we need to find how to address such challenges, which I think are going to be arising from such acquisitions. Thank you.
That is very interesting. I don't know about you, Mweshi, but I think while I was aware of the potential benefits that technology, not necessarily AI, but high tech, whatever that moniker may describe, that high tech and AI are being used and employed to assist industries that you don't necessarily think of being very digitally driven. So mining is considered extractive, but of course beyond a big digger and a drill, the concept of technology being used, I think, is crucial, especially probably in terms of identification of targets. Right. Same thing with agriculture. I know we did a large transaction across Africa, multi-jurisdictional, the Monsanto Bayer transaction several years ago, and even back then, almost a decade now, even back then, technology was actually one of the key innovation drivers for agriculture and farmers, and identifying everything from timing schedules for farming, to better use of land, to better use of chemicals, etc. So I think the information technology / technology sphere, and especially AI, will indeed have an impact on industries of every kind, not just not just the traditional ones we think of. So I'm glad to hear that the CCPC is at the forefront and on top of things. Are you using? Are you also using those tools, such as whether it's AI or other analytical tools that are tech based, in your assessments of mergers or in monopoly investigations, or is the focus just on sort of more passive, or are you also actively using them?
And
Yeah,
Joseph, just before you answer Andreas' question, I think I'll just add mine, which is connected to the topic of technology. When you are looking at, I know in the past, some of the mergers that have been approved by the Commission have been given conditions. Now, when you discuss the concern that you and other competition authorities globally are having around the impact of AI and just technology on employment and such like, especially in the extractive industry, do you foresee a situation where you'll start imposing conditions if a merger is to happen in the mining sector, that it has to be with a carve-out that employees are retained and they are not replaced by technology? Or are you going to embrace the national AI strategy, which I believe, I've seen that smile, which I believe is trying to encourage the use of technology, especially in mining, in education, in health, and similar sectors. So what position do you think the Commission is going to take?
all right. Thank you. So maybe starting with the question from Andreas. So I should say we are not currently using those AI technologies like in our assessment of mergers and acquisitions. But it will be interesting and something that we should look forward to see how we can incorporate such tools to effectively assess these transactions. And coming to the question from Mweshi, yes, I should say I remember and I've seen like in the past there were some reports, yeah, where there were conditions to do with employment and the like. But I think the path which we are on right now as the Commission, that is no longer there. We do not put the issues of employment to put it in the authorization as a condition that where we're trying to say that okay, the acquirers or the parties are supposed to retain this number of employees post transaction. The reason being, I think our act is very clear on employment, and we do not want to step into the employment code, which is something that is administered by the Ministry of Labor, even through the Office of the Labor Commission. So yes, when we identify those issues, let's say the impact of AI is regarding human resource, and more so if the parties have disclosed to the Commission, like this is the number of employees which might be affected. I think our job as CCPC, it will only end at assessing the transaction, and where we have seen those public interest concerns or rather considerations. Mweshi, you must, as you may be aware, we do not work in isolation. When we are assessing these transactions, we always get in touch with other relevant stakeholders just to get their views on the transactions which the commission is reviewing. So I think of particular importance if we see that there will be an issue to do with employment, let's say loss of employment. I think it would only be good or reasonable that the commission we engage the appropriate office. I think in this case, the office of the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Labor, just to alert them there is this transaction, so that they maybe on the other end they can look at those issues. And I think more importantly, when we are giving authorizations to or approvals to these transactions, there is a clause which we put, or a section of the act which we put as a commission, where we say that, this approval authorization, it does not preclude the parties from obtaining other regulatory approvals to a transaction. So we think that should be able to cover us on the issues of loss of employment. So I should say, I think AI, this is something which is very positive, and we just have to embrace it and make sure we maximize more from AI or this advancement in technologies. But it's not something that we can push aside and more like trying to stifle its progression. This is something we need to embrace, and I think there should be always a way out where we work out something on how it can be of benefit to the Zambian people. It can be of benefit to the sector in which these transactions are happening, and we see how we move forward.
Interesting. I think the point you just touched on in response to Mweshi's question is very insightful, and I think somewhat new or news to me, at least, namely that the CCPC is going away from the public interest consideration of labor and employment issues and leaving that to other sort of expert regulators or stakeholders. And you and your agency are focusing more on what I would call the pure play, pure competition issues from the antitrust, from the traditional perspective of antitrust law. That seems to be, if that's true, if I'm not misstating what I just heard, that would seem to be a fairly stark contrast to what other competition law enforcers across Africa are doing, namely, and actually across the world, but especially in Africa, namely in South Africa and also the COMESA region with the CCC, namely a renewed focus on those non-competition, the not pure competition factors, but rather things like public interest considerations, retrenchments, post-transaction, etc., at least on the merger enforcement front. So that to me is interesting. I don't know if you have a comment on that or not, but that to me comes as a positive, I might say, but as a surprise.
Yeah, I think what we need to understand is that yes, we'll look at public interest considerations, okay? And I think the issue with assessing mergers and acquisitions or the transactions that you're more like anticipating what would be there in the future, and like post-transaction what will happen. Okay, so like with regards to the public interest considerations, like I mentioned, our act is very clear. So yes, if a transaction comes before us and there are issues to do with, like we gave an example of loss of employment and the like, those are some of the things we know that these are very, they are hot issues, if I may put it this way. Like, let's say with the government would always want to create more jobs and the like. So if there are issues to do with loss of employment, someone may think that would look good, look bad. I mean, on the government, because their aim is to create employment, be it in the public or private sector. So if there is that loss of employment, yes, going to be looked at something which is negative. But working within the Act, okay, the Competition and Consumer Protection Act, which we're enforcing, we have to be very careful, even as we raise those public interest concerns, and ensure that if at all we see the public interest concerns, we are supposed to channel them to the appropriate office, okay? Like I mentioned, the Ministry of Labor, which is mainly which looks at the welfare of the workers or the employees. So we've had transactions where we've noted such issues and then engaged the ministry. We even asked them, okay, are you aware of this transaction? What do you think will be the issues arising from this transaction as a result of this? And they have always been receptive, and they would give guidance. And I think I remember from experience some of the transactions we've handled where they give their response, and they'll also guide the commission through the act which is the Code of Employment Act, which is being enforced. They are going to cite provisions giving appropriate procedures on how the parties, let's say, if they are going to lay off a certain number of employees, the stages in which they are supposed to, the stages they are supposed to follow, the procedure they are supposed to follow, even before they even reach the final point where maybe there are those redundancies and the like, the issues of compensations to the employees, all those things have been provided in the Code of Employment Act, which is being enforced. And those are some of the things like compensations which you will not find in the Competition and Consumer Protection Act. So I think it's only good that when CCPC finds out that there are these public interest concerns, particularly to loss of employment, it should be able to channel that to the appropriate office, so that I think they should be able to be addressed exhaustively by the respective office. Yeah.
Thank you for the greater detail and the clarification. I'm aware of our time constraints, and you have a busy schedule, Joseph. You pointed that out before we started recording, and we are mindful of that. But I want to give Mweshi an opportunity. I think she has another hot question on her mind, and afterwards I would like to ask perhaps one final question regarding regional integration and the future of collaboration with COMESA and AFCFTA and so on. But Mweshi, why don't you go first?
Thanks, Andreas. So, Joseph, my question, I'm a little bit interested in finding out how the Commission is balancing carrying out its enforcement activities, having regard to, I'm not sure if I should call it a slogan or the policy direction that Zambia has taken, which is we're open for business. Because in the past, there has been some complaints that there is overregulation by the Commission, and some investigations that you engage in are usually those that maybe other international global enforcement agencies would not, perhaps maybe pricing concerns and restrictive business practices. So how are you balancing carrying out your duties without appearing to be stifling economic growth?
All right, that's very interesting, I should say. Yeah, so yeah, Zambia is open for business, like you put it very well. And yes, when there is that tag like being open for business, the eyes, of course, will be on the competition authority in a particular country that is overseeing the issues with competition. So yes, I think what we've tried to do at CCPC is trying to be more open also to the various business entities. Let me just say, if I can say, enterprises out there. We have to become more approachable and not to be rigid. Yes, we have got a particular statute or act that we are enforcing, but that does not stop us as the competition of authority to be open to dialogue with the business entities. I think ever since that was declared, like Zambia is open for business, that has been our approach. And of particular importance, I think, if we speak of issues to do with abuse of dominance cases, I think even our approach as CCPC now is that, initially, if I may put it, initially what we used to do is a complaint once it comes, obviously, right there and then we're going to send out what we call a notice of investigation, which is should be aware of this. So, like for abuse of dominant cases, already we issue out a notice. But I think our approach now is that, okay, like you mentioned, we don't want to stifle a business. So if there is a complaint, I think even before we put it into a notice and demanding that the parties make a response, it's been encouraged that we need to get in touch, first of all, even possibly. Nowadays, things are easy through even a virtual meeting. It could be a physical meeting at the offices of the commission to have the meeting with the parties or the respondents, in this case, the ones whom have been complained against. Basically, you are just trying to put it to them that, okay, these are the allegations, because we're still treating them as allegations that we've received and against your enterprise, and would want to hear from you, because I think at that stage we're just trying to establish, to get the facts. Okay, is this even a particular allegation that the commission should go ahead to investigate? I think preliminaries are very important. They would not only save the commission's time, but they'll also save the enterprises time. So I think those meetings, preliminaries, they are just you're trying to establish if at all this is something that is worth pursuing or investigating. So I think that is one approach which I've seen from experience to be working, and only where you are sure, you are confident that, okay, this is something we can attempt to pursue, then to even write to the parties. So you find that in these meetings, would even put it across to the parties to tell them, okay, at the moment we're just trying to, you're more like a fact-finding mission. But if we find that, okay, this is something that we can pursue, surely we are going to send you that letter or a notice of investigation, which would be required to respond to. So I think, unlike in the past, where straight away we would write to you a notice of investigation, which most of the companies or enterprises they have complained against, saying maybe it could be the way we were couching our letters. They were saying there was something which were considered to be very intimidating and the like. I don't know, maybe it was the language, the way the English was couched. So those are some of the things we are open to adjusting and to, so that, because this is we are not fighting with these enterprises. We consider them to be partners, and we are all working for the common goal, just to better Zambia. So I think we are open for business. We are also open to meet you as CCPC and hear your view, and where we find that okay, we can pursue a particular case, that's when we are going to write to the parties. So I think we've managed to adjust and be open to the business world.
That's nice to
think
hear,
that-
Joseph.
I agree, Mweshi. That's a healthy approach, and I think just the concept that you were just describing, that you are open to receiving constructive criticism and adjusting even things as small as the letter writing style for these generic investigatory letters is important sometimes, right? Because cultural or linguistic misunderstandings can lead to an entirely different posture in an investigation, merger or monopolization investigation, no matter what. So it's refreshing and positive, I think, from our perspective. Again, being mindful, Joseph, if you have a couple more minutes, I think our audience is global, and they would love to hear, going beyond purely Zambia, they would love to hear whether regionally and maybe even continent-wide in Africa, Zambia is looking forward to its further integration into open trade, such as COMESA, such as the AFCFTA, or other groupings, and what your thoughts are on the role of the CCPC and its jurisdiction, right? Because when you think about it, historically, a regional overlay of an enforcement agency such as the COMESA Competition Commission on top of its member states, such as Zambia, will bring with it some limitations, right? On for example, the purview of your merger review authority, given that there may be a community dimension, a regional dimension to a transaction that you would otherwise have reviewing authority over, which is now in a way usurped, legally usurped by COMESA, for instance, or potentially going forward by the AFCFTA regime if that moves forward within within our lifetime still. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are, or what the agency's thoughts are, if you can speak to that, or your personal thoughts are on this aspect of regional integration.
All right. I'll say my thoughts on this one. Yeah. Okay. So I think I should start by saying that Zambia is not an island, and there is this globalization. So there is a global village where you cannot afford to be alone, and you have to be open to international trade. And if it comes to do with issues with enforcement of with regards to competition issues, again, I think we are always we should be seen always to be keeping up with the best practices. That should be international best practices with what other it could be other competition authorities or regional blocks are doing, and we shouldn't be seen to be behind. And I think this is why you see that Zambia, through the Competition and Consumer Protection Authority, it is very active in these regional blocks, or even international competition networks such as ICN. The reason being is that we are always learning. Like in the preamble, when you asked the question about the future, we're talking of things to do with digitalization, digital measures, and the like. Yeah, so we are always learning from other competition authorities. So, like I can give an example with COMESA Competition Commission, where Zambia is also a member state of COMESA. So I think we've seen a lot of collaboration with Triple C, particularly with the mergers and acquisitions. I cannot mention the parties, but I think it was just last week where we had a team from COMESA Competition Commission on a pending major transaction, which is not only affecting the target in another country or COMESA member state, but it's also affecting Zambia. So they were more like on a fact-finding mission. And I should say we worked closely very well in trying to give them the information. And we were also learning from them. Okay, so there will always be these major transactions which are going to be cross-border, and we have no option but just to apply ourselves to be very relevant and active in these regional blocks. I think this is the way, for me, this is the way to go. One thing I should mention, which I've, from my experience or which I've observed, is that, in line with mergers and acquisitions, if we are not careful as competition authorities, okay, would find ourselves even more like creating, should say, a monster of a company that is basically owning more than enough, like on the regional block. And this, I just wanted to qualify, it can come through the various acquisitions that have been happening for some companies, where, for example, they come in Zambia, they acquire, okay, they move to another country, let's say Malawi, they do an acquisition, they go to Kenya, another acquisition. So you can see that all these are COMESA member states. There are these acquisitions which are happening, okay, independently with the respective authorities, okay. By the time us as competition authorities were coming to the knowledge of it, you find that this particular enterprise, as we have created more like a dominant firm in the region, okay. So I think the conversations which we keep having, which I think should continue with various competition authorities on the regional blocks as well, it helps to know, and also just to keep an eye of these acquisitions, so that some can be just coming as creeping measures, and in the end you create this one big company, and it is the one which is controlling the whole region. Okay, I know being dominant in itself is not like in Zambia, it's not a violation, but it's what you do with the abuse of that power. But I think I was just trying to drive to the point that through these collaborations, we should be able to monitor these acquisitions which are happening in other member states. So I think collaboration on the regional blocks, it could be the ACFTA, through COMESA and the like. These are very important to the competition authorities if we are to keep ourselves up to the pace at which these multi corporations are moving. I should be able to say, Andreas, that there are times where when you sit and you look at, okay, these guys, they're more like 2 steps ahead of us, and we really need to catch up with these multi corporations. But I think the only way we can do this is by sharing notes through these regional blocks, through these collaborations. And there are other engagements which we have, like attachments or exchange programs. Yeah, I think that's the right word. Exchange programs with various competition authorities. So you find that there was should be this year. We had some officers, one from our department, others from Directorate of Legal Services, and then the other one from Restrictive Business Practice, go to Triple C. Okay, that's more like just an exchange program. You get to understand how things are being done on the regional level. We've had on many occasions colleagues from Eswatini. They come through the commission, colleagues from the competition authority from Malawi, they come to the CCPC. You share notes. I think that is the best way in which we're going to keep ourselves abreast with these competition issues on the global market.
Absolutely. I think that makes sense. Thank you for that thoughtful answer. And I know your point about these exchange programs or secondments, whatever you want to call them. Even beyond that, I think just the mere concept of for example, the Triple C being made up of essentially staff from the member states of COMESA, right, is so crucial to entities like yours, the CCPC in Zambia, having sort of that regional flavor, if you will, added to its contingent of staff. I know that Siboni Maseko, who's now recently been appointed to be the new chief antitrust enforcer in Eswatini, I know her very well from her days at the Triple C, and I just saw her actually in Zambia at Livingston at that last conference we had. Beautiful place, by the way. I do love your country. And she since then has moved on from the COMESA entity, competition commission, to her own, leading her own agency in Eswatini. So I think that makes perfect sense. Maybe on that note, but I also want to give Mweshi another opportunity to ask a substantive question. But I do want to thereafter, I do want to close with perhaps your thoughts on more globally international events. I want to mention that we are planning to organize a conference in Zambia. Hopefully you and maybe some of our listeners can join in the next year, probably early to mid 2025. But Mweshi, I want to give you the stage to close out on our podcast.
Okay, thanks. So I want to ask a question that has a global touch to it, but it's bringing you back to domestic enforcement. I just want to find out, following the implementation of the amendment to the Competition Act in 2023, how have you experienced carrying out your functions? Has it made merger regulation much easier? Has it cured whatever defects you thought existed in the previous law? Or are you seeing any other issues that it might have created? Because obviously when there's legislative intention, we're assuming that there is a problem that we want to weed out. And as you answer my question, I'm curious about the core assets, movement of core assets. Have you experienced any live case where such an application has been made?
Okay, thank you, Mweshi. Yeah, so like you have rightly put it, yes, there have been an amendment to the act. I should say this is something which we are looking forward to. I think for so long, yeah, for some time, and it's good that now we are putting into practice, so we are implementing the act which was amended. So yes, I think there were some gray areas in the Act number 24 of 2010, and I think some of the issues have been addressed. I know there are issues to do with like in the act, the previous act, we didn't have the issues to do with unquestionable conduct, and right now in the amended act that has been included. It's very clear, and I think also on the issues to do with mergers, yeah, we have we have some issues that have been put in place. I can speak to the issues to do with Section 37. Section 37 basically of the Act. Initially, it was speaking to mergers that have not been brought to the attention of the nation, and then you see the parties they go ahead to consummate, and then when the commission finds out, then there are issues to do with regularization and the like. So I think that's in a whole that part, Section 37. There were issues to do with negligent, whether a particular transaction or measure was implemented negligently or it wasn't negligent and the like. So I think there have been issues where we were in the amendment, we've removed those that word like negligent. Uh, the reason being, I think now is that in our assessment, if I remember very well, we used even to have arguments or discussions with my colleagues in the office. So how do you justify? Was it just negligent and the like when they implemented this transaction? Of course, the parties are going to tell you. So, but what is your justification as a competition authority? So I think that has been taken care of. So where we're standing right now, there are no issues whether it was implemented negligently or whatever, as long as there was consummation of a transaction that's supposed to be deemed notified with the commission, and then it has not been notified, then the commission is going to take it that okay, you've consummated without the authorization of the commission. Yes, so there are those issues which have been placed. I think even the issues over to do with trade associations, I think those are things that have been taken care of as well in the amended act. So there is more clarity on that. I think you also mentioned the other question on the core assets, the movement of core assets, if I got you right. Uh, so I think for core assets, I don't know, you are going to advise, maybe I am going to misinterpret your question or not. For core assets, what we basically receive, even I think this is mainly handled by my colleagues in consumer protection, like for relocation. I don't know if that's what you meant. For relocation of core assets, could be machinery from mines and the like. Maybe that particular asset there, it came here for a project. Maybe it could be a construction of roads and the like. And then let's say they're coming from Zimbabwe and then they are relocating those assets. Uh, from experience, even the time I was in consumer, what we used to do on such issues is that, we'll just do a physical check of those assets. So it's a physical inspection. If it's in the mines, you go, you physically inspect those core assets. What you're just doing there is just to verify that the documents they have given, the names of those machinery which is being relocated, is actually the exact equipment. So once you verify those issues and then you issue the permission for the parties or for the enterprise to relocate those assets which were being used for a particular project. I don't know if I got your question right, Mweshi, but you can still clarify if I didn't get it right.
No, you did get it right, Joseph. Just that there was an element to it that I'd added of whether you have had any applications since the act came into force. But I'm assuming since you haven't mentioned anything about any recent experiences, that hasn't been the case. I think.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Not with certainty, unless I got some heads up from my colleagues from Consumer Protection Department, because mainly that sits with them, of which I can be happy to share that information even off the this interview. If so, they have received some application for relocation. I know there's a lot of activity on the economy. I should presume they should have, but I just need to confirm on that one.
All right, thank you. Andreas, over to you.
Thanks, Joseph. One thing that just your answer and actually Mweshi's question raised there also regarding mining. Is there any formalized list of, or perhaps an informal priority list of industries that the CCPC is focusing on, whether it's with market studies or investigations or just generally priority target industries that are of the greatest importance to your authority? I don't know whether it might be agriculture. I know when I was in Zambia recently, the Minister of Trade and Commerce was present and gave a speech to the diplomatic attachment of the CCC, and he did mention that agriculture was one of the sort of focus areas for the next few years at least for the country. So I don't know whether that also applies to the CCPC's own areas of focus, or whether there are any other industries or sectors in your economy, given that it's a relatively small economy. What are your focus areas?
All right, thank you for that intervention. So I think not that we have a list to say that okay, these are our priority sectors and the like, but I think we also we are also able to get it from the trends of I give an example of the majors applications which we receive as the commission. You're going to see that okay, we are receiving a lot of applications in this particular sector, and also like from the pronouncements which are basically made by government, like you had put it, Honorable Minister of Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Trade, like you mentioned, the issues to do with like agriculture sector. So yes, agriculture is one of them, and I should be able to tell you that we've received like this year quite a number of major applications in the agriculture sector. This same applies to the mining sector. There are a lot of also transactions or economic activity happening there. I think we can just see from the way more like government is trying to unlock these investments in the mining sector. So when there are those pronouncements, I think even from government, even on ourselves, where we are sitting, then we are supposed to be open and vigilant. I thought this is the sector that is of particular importance to the government, and we expect a lot of investments in this particular sector. So like just like that, we've been able to see a lot of transactions in the mining sector, agriculture sector, also in the tourism sector as well. There are a lot of transactions that we have seen as a commission, and I think you also spoke of issues to do with things like the study and the like. Yes, so basically for studies, that is mainly it is done by our research unit, which is under the office of the executive director. So they've got quite for them, they've got quite a number of list of sectors where they are supposed to do basically the studies. So for them, it is a priority that they have those lists. So I think there are a lot of inquiries. I'm not allowed to disclose maybe at this time. Yeah, so there is already one inquiry that research unit are doing in a particular sector. It's a market inquiry. I think once they are done, they should be able to share the findings of that market inquiry. I know we've done market inquiries in the past. It could be in the cement, it could be in the poultry sector, it could be in cotton and the like. So there are a lot of studies which are done by the research units. And all those things, once the research unit does that, it also still feeds into the work which we do as various different departments.
Thank you for that answer. And I know in the poultry sector, at least, I think that has actually led to some enforcement action, if I remember correctly. So in the past, so clearly your research unit leads to real results and probably transfers some of the results to the other units, including yours, for action to be taken. In light of your valuable time, Mweshi's, and that of our audience as well, I want to thank you. I do want to ask a closing question. Can you entice our listeners or viewers, since this will also be on video, I believe, to come to your beautiful country, to come to Zambia for this conference next year? It will be, I think, taking place in the late March, early April kind of a time frame. I think that's not a bad time to be in Zambia, based on my memory, if it serves well, right? What do you say? You said tourism is a key industry, one of the key industries other than agriculture and mining. Would you say that Zambia is a pretty good place to come as a legal practitioner or someone interested in developments in competition law? I think the International Chamber of Commerce wants to push for it. Do you think they're doing the right thing here?
They definitely are, in my view.
Okay,
Zambia has
we
one
got
of
one
the
vote.
world's wonders, so they definitely need to come. And the commission should
Absolutely.
jump on that bandwagon of advertising Zambia as a destination. Hopefully, no one will come and enforce against you.
Don't try to go over Victoria Falls in a barrel.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. No, surely they should. Zambia is, first of all, I think one paramount thing about Zambia is that we're a very peaceful country, and that is something that is, I think, it's the bedrock for all these things we've talked about. You talk of investments and the like. If you don't have peace in a country, all those things then they can't be actualized. So Zambia, of paramount importance. We're a very peaceful country, very welcoming. Just look at Mweshi; she's very welcoming. Okay, yeah. So we are very friendly people. Okay, and we've got a lot to offer here in Zambia. It's among the top tourist destinations in the world. We've got a lot of wildlife in Zambia, which I think you wouldn't find in other parts of the world. And your delegates for that conference, I think they should be looking forward to enjoy the wildlife which Zambia offers. And I think if you're going to place it in April, I think that is a right time, because I believe now we are receiving rains. Rains have started. By then, April, our Victoria Falls should be flooded, and people should be able to enjoy to view this one of the seven wonders of the world. Thank you.
We look forward to it, and I believe the CCPC has already informally agreed to participate. So we look forward to welcoming you as well, hopefully as a speaker, as a panelist, and your colleagues as well. And the three of us, as well as perhaps some of our audience today, can meet again in person, in the next few months. So I, for one, do look forward to that, returning to your country. I want to thank you on behalf of Primerio, and Mweshi, I'm sure will echo that sentiment for your time. Thank you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph.
Have
Thank
a
you
good
so
day,
much again.
and to our audience, also apologies, and to our audience, thank you for listening in on our conversation with Joseph Mutale of the Zambian CCPC. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.